McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. Tender, juicy, and its own sauce. Would you look at that? Well, you can't see it, but trust me, it looks delicious. New McCrispy strips, now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey, this is Adam Carolla. Let me tell you about my podcast. We do it every single day, so you can subscribe, and there'll always be a fresh one waiting for you. It's about 2 hours of topical topics, and news, and guests, and comedians, and, of course, my own vitriolic take on just about everything that's going on in the world. Plus, we get a lot of really interesting, notable people who come in. We'll get politicians, we'll get tastemakers, we'll get stand-ups, we'll get authors, we'll get pundits, we'll get, I think about covers it all, celebrities as well. And we'll do some really interesting interviews with them. You can get the Adam Carolla Show wherever you download your podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 233 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Excelente.
Excelente?
Yeah.
Good.
So I'm hoping for an excellent episode because I feel so good.
I feel good, too. I got a lot off my chest today.
You did during the polygraph?
I did.
the lie detector test that I put you through that is now on Patreon.
It's out there.
Yeah, it was an interesting exercise for sure. Gibbs, let's go ahead and give our shout outs, our support shout outs. For Patreon, we had Kathy McCallum.
Hey, Kathy.
Shandon Marburger.
Appreciate that, Shandon.
Lucy Eisman.
What's going on, Eisman?
Leah Laley.
Hey, Leah.
Diana Blackwell.
Hey, Diana.
Lindsay Shannon.
Well, appreciate that, Lindsay.
Amanda Schmidt.
Hey, Amanda.
Pam Pam.
Oh, good old Pam Pam.
Brooke Corpus.
Thanks, Brooke.
Sandra Westerberg.
Hey, Westerberg.
Andrea Veenstra.
It's Veenstra.
Christina Moda.
What's going on, Christina?
Stacy Monk.
Hey, appreciate that, Stacy.
Sharessa Werner.
Hey, Sharessa.
Lily Salmon.
Well, thank you, Lily.
Kevin Bonner.
What's going on, Bonner?
Little Mama.
Hey, there's a little mama in the house.
Maggie Jacques.
Oh, Jacques.
Amy Birch.
What's happening, Amy?
Glenna Jeffries.
Well, thank you, Glenna.
And Jaziri.
Jaziri.
That's what I'm going with.
I like that.
Then we go back into the vault, Gibbs. This week, we selected Michelle Hamilton.
Well, thank you, Michelle.
So we appreciate the Patreon support. We also had PayPal donations from Dana Mackey.
Hey, Dana.
And Jennifer Ailman.
Well, appreciate that, Jennifer.
So thanks to everyone. Gibbs, right now on True Crime All the Time, we have an episode out on D.D. Moore and the murder of lottery winner Abraham Shakespeare.
Just again shows you there's very bad people in this world.
Well, you talk about cold, man. This woman was cold, calculating, and killed just for pure, simple greed. That's all it was.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
We're talking about the unsolved murder of Officer Kevin Brame, and we're in our hometown.
We are.
Of Dayton, Ohio. It was on November 1st, 1999, that 31-year-old police officer Kevin Brame was ambushed and shot in the neck at close range outside his estranged wife's house. Dayton, Ohio police have worked the case for almost 22 years without success, and it remains unsolved to this day. And I think, obviously, Gibbs, the big question here is who ambushed a young police officer just steps away from his two young children. On that November 1st day, it was a Monday, Kevin Brame was dropping off his two sons at his estranged wife's house. It had been an unplanned and unexpected visit with his boys. The only one who knew that he would be coming by his ex-wife's house at 624 Cherry Street was his ex-wife herself, the very person who arranged for the weekday visit. And according to the Dayton Daily News, Carla Brame is also the only person who refused to cooperate with police as they were trying to solve the murder of her ex-husband, and she quickly moved to Texas following the murder. Kevin told his close friends in the days leading up to his murder that he thought someone was following him. So I think just based off that, Gibbs, you have to ask the question, number one, was someone really following him? And then two, did he have a stalker who was bent on murder?
Or could his killer have been somebody that Kevin arrested or testified against who wanted some payback?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we don't know, right? This is an unsolved case, but you have to think that all of these things are in play. Police vowed to work the case as long as necessary to solve the murder of one of their own, someone that they referred to as family.
We know they take that extremely seriously.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, police officers take murder seriously, right? Any murder. They want to solve murders. But I don't think anyone would argue when it's one of their own. When a police officer is killed, I think things get heightened. You know, there's a sense of a brotherhood. There's a sense of loss because they know this person on a deeper level. You know, this is not just another murder victim. And I hate to say it that way. I don't want to trivialize any murder, but I think you'd be hard pressed to say that that's not true.
Right.
That they have to view these a little differently just because it's much more personal to them.
It's a family member.
Sure. Investigators have said that they believe they know who committed the murder of Kevin Brame. In fact, they believe that there are two suspects involved. The question is, will they ever be able to put together enough evidence to arrest and prosecute Kevin's killers? Gibbs, in 1999, Kevin Brame had two goals: to be the best father and the best police officer that he could possibly be. Living in Dayton, Ohio, 31-year-old Kevin was estranged from his wife, Carla, but he worked hard to have a good relationship with his two sons, 8-year-old Antonio and 5-year-old Dominique. Kevin coached their soccer teams, took them to museums, and took them on a lot of different outings to try to expand their understanding of the world. Gibbs, he just did everyday dad things, right? Helped them with their homework, made their meals. This was a guy who really worked hard to be an active, involved, hands-on dad, not just someone that the two boys saw occasionally on weekends, a couple of times a month.
Yeah, he definitely wasn't just going through the motions.
No, he wanted to have as close a relationship as he possibly could with the custody arrangement that he had with his estranged wife, Carla.
Yeah, I mean, he made the best out of the situation. And we've seen parents that have gone through the motions and the ones that actually dive in and participate in their kids' life. And it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that it makes a huge difference. Whether, the mom and dad are living together, whether there's a divorce, no matter what it is, having both parents try to be as active and involved as possible, it does make a huge difference. Kevin and Carla had separated after 6 years of marriage, and they had a custody arrangement in place that was described in a Dayton Daily News article as complicated. In 1993, Kevin joined the Dayton Police Department. His mother, Rosemary, told NBC's Dateline that this was his main career goal in life, to be the best possible police officer that he could. WHIO 7 News reported that on his job application, Kevin wrote that he wanted to be a good and respected police officer in an answer to a question about his ultimate life goal. And Kevin was following a family tradition. His father, Jerry, was a retired Dayton detective. Kevin's favorite assignment was working bike patrol because he thought that way he could better interact with the people in his community. He was on his bike. There was no car. to wall him off from the people. He loved the city of Dayton, and he felt connected to the community and his neighbors.
Yeah, no doubt about it. When you're on that bike patrol, you can really come up and talk to the citizens and be part of the neighborhood. And
there's a lot more interaction.
For sure.
It's much more personal. When you're on a bike, obviously you're not traveling at the same rate of speed. You're not enclosed with the windows up. People can wave and say hi, and you can say hi back. Kevin was Rosemary and Jerry's first son. He had always been a good athlete, played sports throughout school, and he enjoyed being active and staying in shape. So, you think about, bike patrol. Well, that's a great way for a police officer or a young dad to get his exercise in, his or her. You're not riding around in the car all day. You're really putting in the work riding that bike.
Certainly going to benefit yourself.
In one interview, Rosemary recalled that when Kevin was 9, he got neighbors to pledge to back him for a bike-a-thon for a charity fundraiser. Many of his pledges were shocked to learn that he biked 32 miles that day.
I bet they were extremely shocked.
Yeah, because they might have pledged $10 a mile for all we know.
How far is this 9-year-old going to go?
Yeah, a mile. Okay, I'll pay my $10. No, you're going to pay $320, and you're going to have to live up to it, but you're not going to be happy. That's actually happened to me before.
Yeah.
Not in the same exact situation, but I remember one time one of my friend's kids came to me with one of these things, and I misunderstood how it worked. And so pledged much more than I would have had I fully read the paper and understood the parameters of the fundraiser. So I ended up writing a much bigger check than I would have liked to.
Right.
Or that I thought I was going to have to.
Next time you read everything.
From that point forward, I did a lot more due diligence on these fundraisers.
Right. Yeah.
On November 1st, 1999, Kevin Brame worked an overnight shift for the Dayton PD before heading over to the court for a hearing he was involved in as an officer. It was really warm that day, but it was also rainy. His ex-wife, Carla, called him that afternoon, saying that his boys missed him and they wanted to see him. Now, it wasn't one of his days to have the boys, according to their custody agreement. So I think Kevin was pretty surprised, but he was also pleased. I mean, based on everything that we said, this wasn't a guy who was going to turn down an opportunity to spend the day with his kids if it came up.
Yeah, he's going to take advantage of the opportunity.
Absolutely. People said that about him. He would always make time for his sons. There was nothing that could improve his day more than looking forward to spending time with his kids.
I think we all could agree with that.
I would say 99.9% of the time you are correct on that point.
Yeah, I just kind of thought about that myself.
I have to be honest. There are some days where my kids are in a funk.
Right.
And they do not want to hang out with me. If your kids are in that mood, okay. You still love them, but let's stay in separate rooms for a little while, a couple hours until whatever mood you're in, kind of subsides. Yeah.
Or say, go visit your mom.
Yeah. Go hang out with your mom. Kevin's mother told WHIO 7 News he got the boys unexpectedly that day. He got a message from Carla that the boys wanted to see him, and his visits with the boys had been hard in the weeks leading up to this. Kevin picked up Antonio and Dominique, and they went to buy a new video game. Then he took them to dinner at Rooster's restaurant, the boys' favorite.
Hey, Rooster's is a pretty good place to get some wings.
Yep, I really like Rooster's wings. They got a lot of other good stuff too, but man, they got some good wings.
They sure do.
After dinner, the three of them went to see Kevin's parents. It was his father's birthday, and even though Rosemary and Jerry were divorced, they were close enough for Rosemary to host a small party at her house for him. The boys loved seeing their grandparents and their Aunt Karen, Kevin's sister. So I'm taking from that, Gibbs, that, the relationship between Rosemary and Jerry must have stayed pretty good.
Pretty civil. After
the divorce, because, they're getting together to celebrate his birthday.
Yeah, I don't think my ex is going to have a birthday party for me.
No.
No.
Most would not.
Right.
Just doesn't normally happen that way. This must have been a pretty amicable divorce, and they remained pretty civil.
That's a good description.
Thank you. So they were there for about an hour. They had cake and ice cream, and they watched Jerry open up presents. Kevin and Karen made plans to take the boys on a trip to Minneapolis, Minnesota. But it was a school night. So Kevin left with the boys around 8:30 p.m. to take them back home to Carla's. And it wasn't even a half hour later. It was at 8:57 p.m. The phone rang at Rosemary's house. The birthday celebration was still going on. It was Carla on the phone. She was frantic and she was yelling, "You need to get over here. Kevin's been shot in the yard."
Well, that phone call is definitely going to ruin the birthday celebration.
Yeah, that's going to end the party very quickly. And like you and I talk about all the time, this is one of those phone calls that no parent wants to get, no family member wants to get, saying, your son's been shot, your brother, your loved one's been shot. That's tough.
Yeah.
So the whole family raced over to Carla's on Cherry Avenue, and they got there quickly. I mean, they arrived in less than 5 minutes. When they got there, the Dayton police were already on the scene. Yellow police tape was strung up around the yard, and Kevin Brame was already dead. When she found out, Rosemary fell to the ground, overcome with grief. Kevin was her only son, and now he was gone. And again, as hard as that phone call is to receive, this is so much tougher. It's alarming to hear that, someone you love's been in an accident or they've been shot or something like that. I think though, at the time when you're on that kind of phone call, the thought is, okay, it's not good,
right?
But they'll be okay. We're going to get there. EMS is going to get them to the hospital. They'll live through this.
Right.
But in less than 5 minutes, they're on the scene and they find out that no, he's dead.
And his whole family's there. His mom, his dad, his sister, his kids, they're all experiencing this.
Yeah, you're right. I was kind of focusing on the mom, but it's the same for everyone. Gibbs, I don't think it took police long to determine what happened. It was dark out. Kevin escorted the boys to Carla's door, and as he was walking back to his car that was parked at the curb, someone ambushed him and shot him in the back of his head once with a shotgun.
Okay, that's brutal.
Yeah, you and I have talked about shotguns quite a bit. A shotgun blast to the head at close range is extremely brutal. I mean, let's face it, any shot at close range to the back of the head most likely is going to be fatal. But the damage that a shotgun does up close,
not pretty.
No, not at all. Now, they theorized that the shooter was probably hiding in the large bushes that surrounded Carla's house. 2 neighbors heard the single gunshot. One called police, while the other, who lived just next door, ran over and saw Kevin lying on the ground in a pool of blood that they described as spreading. So obviously, they got there very quickly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
This guy ran to bang on Carla's door, telling her what he had seen.
Well, Carla seemed shocked.
Yeah, and she thought that the noise had come from a car backfiring. Because obviously, Gibbs, she had to have heard the shot. She was as close, if not closer, than these 2 neighbors that heard it. She had to have heard it.
Oh, I agree with you. How could she not?
If somebody fires off a shotgun in your front yard, you're going to hear that. Now, could you mistake it for a car backfiring? Maybe. Potentially. She looked out and she saw Kevin lying on the lawn. She ran to call the police and then she notified Kevin's family. Rosemary later told WHIO7 reporters whoever did this was a coward. They didn't confront him. He was shot from behind. He didn't have a chance to defend himself. He didn't have a prayer.
No, and he really didn't, right? I mean, ambushed. He was ambushed. I mean, the whole purpose behind the ambush is to not allow the person to defend themselves.
Yeah, and he would have had no chance because obviously he didn't hear this person or he would have turned around and he would have ended up being shot in the face. The fact that he was shot in the back of the head tells me that it was a successful ambush and he didn't have a chance to defend himself. Dayton police detectives believe that whoever shot Kevin had to have planned it out. He didn't live at the Cherry Street house with Carla, so it had to have been either someone who had been following him or someone who had been given information about where he would be at a certain time. He was not normally at Carla's on a random school night. We said it. This visit had been unplanned. This was a heartless killer who shot Kevin just after he dropped off his kids. And the killer had no way of knowing if his two sons would run back outside in response to hearing the loud gunshot. So obviously, Gibbs, we're kind of setting this up, right? As to the killer or killers being someone that was privy to information, having knowledge that Kevin was going to be at Carla's house at a certain time, or they had been following him. Because really, outside of those two things, you're looking at just a random person with a shotgun who waited until a man that they didn't know dropped his kids off inside a house and then walked back to his car.
And said, I'm going to shoot him today.
Yeah. That's not very likely, right?
No.
The first two, much more likely.
Right. So how did they know when he was going to be there?
That's the $1 million question.
Exactly.
Hundreds of officers from around the state of Ohio attended Kevin's funeral, along with his many friends and the people whose lives he touched as a police officer. Investigators got to work right away on solving Kevin's murder. At first, there were literally hundreds of suspects because they had to look at anyone who Kevin had arrested or testified against. They had to consider all of these people as possible persons of interest. A $100,000 reward was quickly offered for any information that led to a conviction. Detectives looked into every case Kevin had been involved in, hoping to identify someone who may have wanted to get revenge, someone who either shot Kevin or hired someone else to kill him. And this brings up something, Gibbs, that I don't think about all that often. You know, we all know that being a police officer is a very dangerous job.
Sure is.
But I think a lot of times, at least me personally, I think about the danger being in the line of duty, right? Responding to a call, somebody's armed, there's a gunfight, an officer gets shot and is killed. What I don't think about a lot, and probably should think about more, is the danger from people that you put away, people that you caught. Okay, that's real.
Yeah, they're not happy about being put away.
Sure.
And neither are their family members or some of the people they might be associated with.
Yeah, so there's some dangers that come from that as well.
Yeah, that outside arena.
That probably gets, overlooked by a lot of people, as I have most of the time. So detectives, authorities are investigating. Rosemary and Jerry, they weren't going to sit quietly either. They began their own investigation of a sort.
Well, you got to remember, Jerry was a retired detective.
Oh, right. So he's not going to sit on his hands. So number one, he's a father. And I think just based on that,
Right.
It would have been hard for him to sit on his hands and do nothing. Add in the fact that he's a retired detective, he's going to want to get involved.
Absolutely.
In whatever way he can. He's not active, so he doesn't have all the resources that he would have had. In speaking with Kevin's closest friends, they learned that Kevin thought he was being followed in the weeks leading up to his death. Friends said that he related as more of a feeling. He didn't really have any type of hard proof, but he never shared this with his parents, probably because he didn't want them to worry. And I think we've all been there. There are some things that I just don't tell my parents.
Right.
Because I don't want to worry them unless it gets to the point where I need them to know.
Yeah, I mean, you think, oh, well, this will probably pass. Or
Sure.
maybe you're making more out of it than it is. No reason to put that additional stress on them.
Yeah, get them all upset if it's going to turn out to be nothing. Kevin never shared the name of the person that he suspected of stalking him, and we're not even sure if he even knew who it was. Just after Kevin's murder, Carla and Rosemary took the two children to therapy. However, according to court documents, in further visits to the therapist, Rosemary was not allowed to attend. And this is despite the therapist's suggestion that she should. Carla refused Kevin's parents' visitation with their grandchildren even after the therapist suggested that they needed to be around loving and trusted people.
Well, Rosemary was one of those trusted and loving people. She watched the children frequently.
And court documents also show that the therapist disagreed with Carla's move to Texas so quickly after Kevin's death. Rosemary had to take Carla to court to regain visitation rights, and she eventually won monthly visitation rights in Texas.
So that's a lot going on for those kids, right?
It really is. First of all, their dad was murdered.
Right.
And then very quickly, they're uprooted from Ohio to Texas, taken away from their grandparents. It's a lot.
Friends, people that
their friends or school. Now, I think some people could make the argument that, well, maybe you might want to get them away from where this awful tragedy occurred. And I could see that from a certain standpoint, but it is a complete upheaval really in their lives if you look at what happened. So, I mean, I don't know. You could argue it both ways, I guess.
And it certainly was splashed all over the media during this time. This was a pretty big event immediately after it happened.
Well, and that's a good point. It happened very quickly. This move to Texas happened very quickly after the murder. Despite the investigators' best efforts, Kevin's murder case went cold. In 2017, Detective Patricia Tackett told WHIO that the department still gets calls and letters with tips and information possibly related to the case every month. It takes multiple filing cabinets to hold all of the materials related to the murder of Kevin Brame. Hanging on the outside wall of police headquarters in downtown Dayton is a color banner with Kevin's photo and information about his slaying, reminding the public of the $100,000 reward available to anyone who furnishes information leading to the identification and arrest of his killer.
Yeah, I mean, it's out there. I drive by it almost every weekend when I go downtown to visit my daughter. You see it. It's been there for a long time.
And police have stated that it's going to stay up there until this case gets solved. Now, it's been 22 years. They haven't solved it yet, but obviously they're not giving up on it. They haven't given up on it, and they shouldn't give up on it. Because as you and I talk about, right, as the years go on, circumstances change, friendships, loyalties change, which could mean that people who were holding a secret have information, but didn't want to give it out because they didn't want to hurt somebody that they loved or were close to. Maybe now they're not so close to that person, or they had a falling out and they're mad at that person.
They're like, you know what?
I'll get back at you.
Yeah, I'm going to make that little phone call, make things happen.
It could absolutely happen that way. Now, there's also the chance that someone has a conscience and it's been eating away at them. Okay. Does it get to the point where they say, I can't take it anymore? Yeah. I've got to call in and tell police what I know. That could happen. I always kind of think if you have that type of conscience, you would do it much sooner.
I think so too.
But it could be that it just takes a while for some people for it to get to the point where they can't live with it anymore.
They just have to get it off their chest.
Right. They've been able to tamp it down or live with it for this long, but at a certain point, they decide enough is enough. But Gibbs, I think you'd have to agree, for the most part, time has more of a negative effect on an investigation than it does a positive one. Case in point, in this investigation, one person who was of significant interest in 2003 passed away in 2012. A man named C.D. McCoy worked with Carla. McCoy told WHIO TV that in 2003, police took him down to the station for questioning and accused him of having an affair with Carla and killing Kevin for $2,000. Now, McCoy denied the accusations and he was never charged.
$2,000, if that's all a man's life is worth, is scary.
Very. The problem is we know people that have been killed for less than that.
Yeah.
It's sickening. It's heartbreaking. But this McCoy guy, he's kind of interesting. Now, obviously, the police didn't have enough on him, if they had anything on him at all. All we know is that he came out to the local television station and said that he was hauled in and accused. The Brame family has stayed busy trying to, keep Kevin's memory alive, keep the focus on the investigation. In conjunction with the police, they established a website where they compile all the information and documents related to the case at www.justiceforkevinbrame.com. Gibbs, this is a very well-known murder to Dayton residents. You have people who were kids at the time that Kevin Brame was killed,
right,
who are now adults with kids of their own. They still remember what happened to this police officer. If you drive through the city, you'll see billboards today.
Yeah.
Reminding the community about this reward that is still available.
I pass one of those billboards every time I come out here to the studio.
Police told reporters with WHIO News that Kevin's estranged wife, Carla, had been mostly uncooperative. After her initial interview, she stopped talking with the police. She cut ties with Kevin's family. We talked about that. She broke the hearts of Rosemary and Jerry when she moved the kids to Texas. After she relocated, Carla returned to Dayton once in December 1999 to answer more questions, but refused all other requests and calls after that. Rosemary keeps a diary where she records her recollections of her son, and she adds the memories told to her by others who were affected by Kevin either on or off duty. She told NBC's Dateline, Kevin just loved life so much. He was so positive and was ready to get on with life. It's so wonderful to hear about the positive things he has done in his short time on earth. He is such a good and generous soul, and I miss him to the depth of my soul. It helps a lot to hear how he touched people, but it doesn't make up for the loss. I miss everything about my son, his laughter, his smile. His brother and sister have lost a quintessential brother, and he was loved by his loyal friends who still come by and visit me. It's heartbreaking, Gibbs, when you think about a mother going through this. It's also touching to hear that, people relay these wonderful stories about how Kevin touched their lives. Right. That makes her feel good. But that tragic loss, it's just at the center. It's at your core. It's never going to go away.
No. And the only way that she can look back and remember is to keep this diary, this journal of all the wonderful things people have said that Kevin has done for them.
But she also told Dateline that she knows there are people in Dayton who know what happened and who was responsible for her son's death. She said, we know people know. We know there are people here in Dayton who know. There is no way in a town the size of Dayton that this shouldn't have been solved long ago.
And I get that from an emotional standpoint that she feels this should already been solved. But I don't really believe that the size of the city determines if a case is going to be solved in a certain period of time.
No, I would agree with you. I don't think there's a direct correlation between the size of a city and how likely it is that a certain case is going to be solved, right? Every case is a little bit different. The facts are different. Now, we'd love if all cases were solved, but we know that's not how it works. It just doesn't happen that way. Now retired Dayton detective Doyle Burke, who was one of the first officers to respond to the scene of Kevin's murder, told WHIO7, in a lot of cases, and this one in particular, there's a lot of suspicion about who could have done it, There's a lot of talk about who could be involved. And there are probably hundreds of suspects the detectives, including myself, have run down. The fact that this was not a scheduled visit, you would have to randomly sit at that house for days, unless you had some inkling that he was going to be there.
Well, I think you made that same statement.
Yeah, and I think that's just common sense. Everybody that looks at the facts of this case would come to that conclusion. He further stated that he thought Kevin's murder was planned. And I think the two go hand in hand, right? I think you have to think both are true.
Right.
But I think the problem is, Gibbs, police have only received vague descriptions during the investigation. Dark cars, shadowy figures. No one who has come forward clearly saw the person. And Kevin never told Carla what time he would be dropping off the kids.
Yeah, I mean, she just knew that the kids were coming home sometime that night.
Yes.
As far as we know.
As far as we know. But no doubt, police view Carla as a person of interest, at the very least, right? She was the one who not only knew that Kevin would be at her house that evening, but she was also the one who arranged for him to be there. I think you combine that with her unwillingness to cooperate with police, that has to put her up on their list. It has to. But then I think you have to look at the other side of it. Maybe she doesn't want to talk to the police anymore because she wasn't involved and she has told them everything she knew.
Well, maybe she also got an attorney that said, hey, you did everything that you needed to. You don't have to talk to him anymore. There's no reason for you to continue to have those conversations. I mean, it sounds kind of weak. If you were not involved, then why not just cooperate, though?
Well, I think a lot of people would look at it as, hey, why not clear your name so police can focus on those who really were involved? If it wasn't you, right? If you had nothing to do with it. A lot of people's minds, I think, go that route. But again, you just mentioned it. Maybe she has an attorney in her ear saying, there's no need for you to do any of that.
Right.
Because only bad things could come from it. According to the Dayton Daily News, Carla sued 3 different insurance companies to obtain Kevin's life insurance proceeds. One policy was worth $50,000, one was worth $100,000, and another was worth $90,000. Now, we talk about greed a lot.
We do.
So you add those up, that's $240,000. Could that be an incentive to motivate someone to murder? It absolutely could. We've seen the motivation for murder come from a much smaller amount of money than that.
We certainly have. So you have all this money out on the table, $240,000. Plus you have this pending divorce, custody situation going on. That's a lot brewing up.
It is. The one thing we haven't talked about is, she moved very quickly to Texas. Did she want to move to Texas prior, while all of this custody stuff was going on? And it was that custody arrangement that was preventing her from moving. I mean, I think that's something else that, you have to factor in with Carla as a person of interest.
Yeah, knowing that Kevin was a family man, I'm sure his answer to them moving out of state was no.
Well, he wasn't going to give up easy on it.
Exactly.
I could tell that just from all of the things that were said about him, all the things that we talked about.
So you certainly have a lot of motives laying there.
Yeah, there are. And that's why, whether she was involved or not, she's going to be a person of interest. She's going to be on the list. Spouses always are. That just comes with the territory. Now you add all these other things in, and I think it does bump her up.
Right.
In the eyes of police on their list.
So then you got to wonder, Kevin telling his friends that he felt like someone was stalking him the weeks leading up to his murder. Well, who was that? Was that somebody that maybe was hired by Carla?
Hired or convinced to help her with the promise of money. I guess you could look at it either way. But to be fair, I think you also have to look at a scenario where she's not involved at all.
Of course, yeah.
And you have an unknown person stalking Kevin Brame. Maybe it's because some of the things that we talked about, somebody's upset. He put them away. It's a family member of somebody he put away. I don't know.
And it's just a tragic event for Carla.
It is. I think to believe that, you have to believe that someone was following him, because obviously that's the only way that they would know.
Yeah.
That he was going to be at that place, that because they were following him. They had no advanced knowledge of that. They only knew because they had been following him. Detective Dan Hill told the Dayton Daily News in 2007 that they believe they know the motive behind the slaying, but he didn't reveal any details because he didn't want to jeopardize the investigation. Now, what I think was very pointed was that Hill said there was no indication that the murder was in any way related to his work as a police officer, and that they had ruled out any type of revenge murder related to an arrest from his work as a motive. So, I mean, I think he's not going to come out and say it, but you can take those comments and, you know, really kind of see that it's pointing in one direction.
Sure it is.
So if you've ruled out that,
what's left?
What's left? And I think we know what that answer is. Hill also said that police believe there were at least 2 people involved and that it was not a spontaneous crime. So again, that as well, to me, points to the fact that they are looking hard at Carla.
So you have the person that wanted him dead, and then you have the person that carried it out.
Yeah, I think that's what they're saying. They just don't want to come out and say it.
Right.
If you read between the lines, I believe what they're hinting at is the fact that they believe Carla wanted him dead and she got somebody to carry it out. I can't be certain of that because I'm just reading between the lines, but unless it's somebody completely different.
So they might have the identity of these people, right?
But not the evidence to move forward.
Yeah.
Or they could be lacking the identity of the person who carried it out and just believe that she had enough motive to want it to happen. And so obviously it wasn't her. So somebody else had to have shot him.
Which could go back to McCoy that died, that police had in custody at one point, or questioned at one point over the $2,000, but didn't feel like they had enough to move forward with him.
Could. Because obviously, Gibbs, if they had the evidence, they would have arrested people, they would have charged people, there would have already been a trial. They just don't have it.
Yeah.
They don't have enough to move forward. Chief Beal, who was a fellow officer of Kevin's back then, told WHIO 7, what a tragedy. The very crimes he worked to prevent from occurring, he is a victim of. It could not be more tragic. It could not be more wrong. It could not cry out more for justice. Somebody knows something. Kevin's father, Jerry, told reporters that he hopes he and Rosemary are still alive when his son's murder is solved, expressing no doubts that it's just a matter of time. Rosemary has the same hope. To one WHIO news reporter, she said she sees the yellow signs on police stations and firehouses all over Dayton and has hope that the right eyes will see it, that someone with information will pick up the phone and call the cold case detective. She said, these people do not deserve to be free, to live amongst us. One of these days, the prayers will be answered, no doubt.
She's exactly right. They don't deserve to be free.
No, absolutely not. Whoever was involved in this should pay. They've already spent 24 years of freedom that they don't deserve. And you got to go back to Jerry, ex-detective. He's never going to lose hope, right? That the police are going to solve this one day. The $100,000 reward is still available for information leading to the arrest of the killer responsible for murdering Dayton police officer Kevin Brame. Gibbs, that's a lot of money. $100,000. Like we said, it's been 22 years. What are the chances that maybe the 2 individuals involved, if there were 2 individuals, have a falling out?
Yeah.
And or maybe somebody gets picked up on another charge, and this is a chip that they use to get out of that charge. There are so many different scenarios in which information could come from.
You just never know what could happen.
You don't. And I think that's why you can't lose hope. Obviously, if you're the family, you just can't do it. Right? You're always going to hope that your son's killer is going to come to justice. They're going to find them, they're going to catch them, and they're going to put them in jail. But I think as a society, we can't give up hope either.
Oh, no.
These unsolved cases, they're so important to so many people. I mean, we talked about how many lives did this guy touch in a positive way.
Sure, yeah.
People have come forward telling stories about it. And, it's one of those things. They're all heartbreaking. They're tough. We just can't give up the hope that he's going to get justice. His family's going to get justice. And frankly, I don't want these people walking around my community either. This was horrible, what happened.
And I feel bad for the kids because they never got to experience all the things that they could have with their father as they grew up together.
Sure. And they were very young.
Yeah.
They were very young when he died. Anyone with tips or information that might be related to the case is urged to contact Dayton PD Detective Patricia Tackett at 937-333-7109 or send an email to patricia.tackett@daytonohio.gov. If you want to remain anonymous, you can also call Dayton Crime Stoppers at 937-222-7867. So Gibbs, as we wrap up this case on Kevin Brame, there is something to be said about doing these cases in our own backyard.
Sure.
We get emails all the time and messages from people about cases that we do. They're not in our backyard, but they're in theirs.
Right.
And it is different when you're listening to a case or when you're researching a case that happened close to home.
Yeah.
There's just something a little different about it because you know the area, you know the streets, you may even know some of the detectives or the police involved, and it's your hometown.
Yeah, and we've done a few hometown ones.
We have.
And we got the big one with Erica that we're due eventually, but we'll get there.
But I get those emails all the time from people who say, I was listening to this case and I drove by this location that you just talked about. Okay, that's an eerie feeling. And it's a feeling that is much different than a case with which you have no connection.
Right.
But, hopefully this is one that does get solved. You really want it for his parents, his siblings, his kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his wife, if she was not involved.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, everybody who's not involved that was in his life deserves to know what happened.
Right.
And he deserves to get justice. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, this is Bree Hildebrandt, and I just finished the William Huff episode, and I got to the mailbag part where Hillary sent in the real $100 bill, and I am cracking up so hard. I'm so Team Hillary right now. That is the funniest thing and the best thing and just the sweetest thing. Like, that is so awesome. I'm so Team Hillary. And then also on the side, a couple weeks ago, you guys were talking about the unsolved cases. And one of the ones that you were hesitant about doing was the John Benang Ramsey case. And I'm just going to say that I am pro going through that case. It is totally fascinating, and I totally want to hear you guys cover it. So looking forward to it, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Oh, we always love to hear from Bree. And she's excited, but you know who was more excited?
Yeah.
Gibby.
Exactly.
That $100, oh man, his eyes lit up. But it was very cool when you think about it, that somebody would do that. And so on John Benang, I mean, you and I have always known that eventually we will cover that. To me, it is one of the most fascinating unsolved cases. There's so many layers to it, and there's so many pieces to it. I think to do it correctly would take, I don't know how many episodes, because there are so many details. So I know we'll do it. I don't know when we'll do it.
Hi, this is Terry from Louisville, Kentucky. And I listened to your podcast on Lars Mittank, and it really reminded me of the disappearance of a young man named Aaron Gillern. That's AERYNGILLERN. He was actually an American who had moved to Vienna. Really fascinating case, a lot of really hinky stuff around it. I hope you haven't done it already, but I think it would be right up your alley. That's Aaron Gillern. And, you know, I am team both of y'all. Hope you're having a great week. Bye-bye.
I don't believe we've done that one.
I don't believe that either.
We're on 233. They're getting hard to keep track of in my head, to be honest with you. But it does sound like something that we should definitely look into. Where does she live, Gibbs?
Louisville.
No, she does not. She lives in Louisville.
Louisville.
That's one of ours that we always go back and forth on.
Mike and Gibby. My name is Megan, and I am listening to your unsolved message podcast right now. Sorry, of the Kenner cluster, number 22, and you guys were talking about methadone. I am a recovering opiate addict, and methadone is in fact used for treatment in opioid addiction. They're kind of going away from the methadone treatments to Suboxone treatments due to the fact people obviously abuse methadone. Anyways, I'm a huge fan of your guys'. I'm officially a Patreon. I think I got my shout out, I don't know, last episode. I just love your podcast. I binge it all night at work. I'm a graveyard housekeeper at a hospital, so, you know, got nothing else to do. All right, I probably sound lame, and I'm sorry. I'm kind of nervous. I'm a very self-conscious human being. All right, bye.
First of all, aren't we all?
It's true.
Self-conscious. I would say you're definitely not lame. I'm extremely proud of you, and I know Gibby is too, because we're sitting here sharing the same look for what you were able to accomplish. Now, I don't remember specifically because the Kenner murders was a long time ago.
Right.
I don't know why we were talking about methadone. I'm hearing a lot lately about Suboxone, I think it's called.
Suboxone?
Is it Suboxone? She said Suboxone. For some reason, I thought I was hearing Suboxone, but maybe it's because I'm thinking methadone.
Maybe.
Either way. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything people can do to get off of that stuff, because I know it's an epidemic, and it's hit us hard here in the Midwest.
It really has.
Where we live.
Yeah.
And, you know, back in the day, it seemed like it kind of skipped us. You know, you would hear about stuff in the big cities, but it kind of skip us here in some of the smaller cities in the Midwest, but not this opioid epidemic. It's hit everybody.
It's everywhere in every type of neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're proud of you.
Absolutely are.
Hi, y'all. This is Laura from the Sunshine State. So I found the podcast about 3 months ago, and I've been binging ever since. Absolutely love it. I've been trying to get the nerve up to call and leave a voicemail, but I hate leaving voicemails. Finally got a reason to do it. I've had difficulty deciding between Team Fergie or Team Gibby until I listened to the episode you did on Stuart Hazel. Fergie, how could you compare this monster to the Adonis that is Charlie Hunnam? That did it for me. Still love you, Ferg, but Gibby's now taking the lead. That being said, love the banner between the two of you, as well as the thought and the research that goes into each episode. Keep them coming, stay safe, and keep your own time ticking.
Nailed it.
Again, I don't remember that. I must have said he looked something like him or something.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. Charlie's my man. You know, that's one of my favorite shows of all time.
You have his posters all over.
Sure. Right next to my 1978 Farrah Fawcett poster.
Which is strange.
It is strange. It's kind of a strange pair, but they make a good looking couple.
The fact that you have more of him than her too.
Well,
you know. Yeah. But hey,
I'm a fan.
You are.
All right, everyone. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.